Go away, bitch. Don't come over here. Karen, call the cops. Call the... It's all these kids in here. Call the cops, you dumb bitch. He coming around the window. Go that way, Cameron. Yeah, bitch, go away, bye. Go away, bye. Yep, bye. Bye. Cam out here.
Nobody saw this twist coming. Not the neighbors, not the family, not even the investigators who claimed they had everything under control. But tonight, everything exploded again. Because in the middle of a routine search, detectives uncovered something nobody wanted to believe. Additional remains tied to the ongoing Kada Scott investigation, sending shockwaves through the entire community. And the moment that news hit the streets, social media went into full meltdown. Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high. And suddenly, the whole case that people thought was slowing down just blew wide open. Phones started ringing. Family members started arguing. Rumors started spreading like wildfire. And the question on everybody's mind was the same. If more remains were found, does that mean there are more suspects? Because insiders claim investigators aren't just treating this as a discovery. They're treating this as a turning point. A shift. A sign that somebody in this story hasn't told the truth. Witnesses are panicking. A few neighbors came forward shaking, refusing to go on camera, but whispering things that could completely flip the entire timeline of events. And the Scott family? They're already divided, arguing behind closed doors about what this means and who might be hiding something. Tonight, we break down everything. The moment investigators confirmed the discovery of additional remains, the entire investigation flipped on its head. What was supposed to be a simple follow-up search suddenly became the biggest turning point in the Kada Scott case so far. Officers who were originally packing up for the day rushed back toward the taped-off area like something out of a crime drama. Radios buzzing, commands being thrown everywhere, neighbors stepping outside in pure confusion. And in the middle of all this chaos, one thing became painfully clear. Somebody wasn't telling the whole truth. Inside the Scott household, the atmosphere was completely different. Heavy, quiet, and tense enough to break. Kada's mother sat on the corner of the couch, gripping a bundle of tissues so tightly her knuckles were turning white. "This can't be happening again," she whispered, voice trembling. Her sister tried comforting her, but even she looked shaken. Nobody was ready for this update. Nobody expected the case to reopen in the most dramatic way possible. Then the first phone call came. "Kada, they found something." A family friend delivered the news, voice shaking like they were scared to even say the words out loud. Kada's aunt gasped, covering her mouth, while her other cousin muttered, "Man, what now? What else could possibly be out there?" But nobody had an answer, and that made everything worse. When police find something new in a case like this, it doesn't bring peace. It brings panic. Meanwhile, across town, two of Kada's closest friends were arguing inside a parked car, voices raised, windows fogged from the tension. "You think this changes things?" Bro, what kind of question is that? This changes everything. They went back and forth for minutes, trying to make sense of everything. One of them pulled out his phone, scrolling through notifications. "Look at this," he said angrily. "People online think we hiding something now. We not even there, and they blaming us." And that's when it hit. This wasn't just new evidence. This was a spark. A spark that was about to set every rumor, every theory, every old argument on fire. Back at the investigation site, a female officer pulled her partner aside. "They're saying this might indicate more than one person was involved," she whispered. "You think that's true?" Her partner stiffened. "I don't know what to think anymore. Every time we think we got a handle on this case, something new drops and messes up the entire timeline." Even detectives were overwhelmed. But the real explosion happened when the news spread across social media. Within minutes, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and neighborhood group chats were on fire. Everyone suddenly had a theory. Everyone had a source. And everyone was pointing fingers at the family, at neighbors, at friends, at random people who had nothing to do with anything. The narrative was collapsing. One comment read, "New remains equals new suspect. Somebody lying." Another said, "Investigators been covering something up. This proves it." And the worst one, "My cousin lives by them. He said something felt off that night." People love turning whispers into facts. Inside the Scott home, tensions were rising. Kada's uncle threw his hands in the air, pacing back and forth. "I've been saying this," he shouted. "I've been saying something wasn't adding up." And nobody listened. Kada's grandmother snapped back. "And what do you know? You always talking like you a detective. Sit down." He turned sharply. "I know enough to say this case ain't clean. Too many stories don't match." "Stories?" the grandmother repeated. "Boy, we dealing with our baby, not stories." The family was fracturing right in front of each other. Then a sudden knock hit the door, loud, heavy, urgent. Knock, knock, knock. Everyone froze. Kada's mother whispered, Who is that?" Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The knock came again, louder this time, rattling the frame. Finally, Kada's brother forced himself to walk forward. He opened the door just a crack, just enough to see who was outside. And when he realized who it was, his heartbeat doubled. Standing on the porch, breathing heavily, hands shaking, eyes red, was someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Someone who had avoided the family for weeks. Someone who had stopped answering calls. Someone who told people they didn't know nothing, but clearly did. Can I come in?" they asked quietly. Everyone stared in shock. Because the next chapter of this investigation wasn't coming from police, it was coming from this person. And whatever they were about to say was going to change the entire direction of the case. The moment that familiar figure stepped inside, the entire room shifted. Even the air felt heavier, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Kada's mother stared, eyes wide, unsure whether to break down or lash out. The cousin who had been arguing earlier folded his arms, instantly suspicious. And Kada's grandmother clutched her necklace like she was begging it to protect the family from whatever news was about to hit them. The person at the door kept their head low, almost ashamed to make eye contact. Kada's brother closed the door behind them. "You disappeared," he said quietly, anger simmering beneath his voice. "You ain't show up. You ain't call. You ain't even text mama." "I know," the visitor whispered, swallowing hard. "I wasn't ready." Kada's aunt scoffed loudly. "You wasn't ready? We've been sitting here torn apart for weeks, and you wasn't ready? Sit down and talk." The visitor nodded and sat slowly on the edge of the couch, hands trembling so visibly, everyone in the room noticed. "Look, I didn't come to fight. I came because they found more." The room froze again. Kada's mother's voice cracked. "Why would you be the one coming to tell us that?" The visitor's eyes filled with tears. "Because I knew this was going to happen. I knew they'd find something else." A wave of confusion rippled across the room. Kada's uncle stepped forward, pointing. "What you mean you knew? How? Explain that." The visitor took a shaky breath. "I was with Kada the night before, the night everything went bad." Gasps filled the room. "You what?" Kada's cousin demanded. "You said you weren't anywhere near him." The visitor's eyes darted around the room, panicked. "I lied. Okay? I lied because I knew how people would react. I thought I could just keep my head down and this would blow over. But now that they found more remains, I can't stay quiet." Kada's mother was shaking now. "Why lie? Why hide? Why didn't you tell detectives?" "I did talk to them," the visitor said, voice trembling. "But I didn't tell them everything. I was scared they'd blame me. I was scared you would blame me." Kada's grandmother raised her hand, silencing everyone. "Tell us exactly what happened." The visitor closed their eyes like they needed a second to gather themselves. "I met Kada near the old trail behind the apartments. He texted me earlier that day saying he needed to talk. He sounded stressed, not himself. When I finally saw him, he looked scared, like he was watching his back for someone." "Watching his back for who?" Kada's aunt snapped. "I don't know. He didn't say. He just kept repeating that something fell off." The family looked at each other, horrified and confused. The visitor continued. voice cracking more. He told me he had a weird encounter earlier that day. Someone approached him. Someone he recognized but didn't trust. Kada's brother stepped closer, heart pounding. He gave you a name? No, the visitor whispered. But he said, if anything happens, remember our conversation. I thought he was being dramatic. I didn't think he meant it literally. Tears finally spilled down their face. And now they found more remains. And now police saying there might be more than one suspect. And I can't stop thinking, what if the person he met that day wasn't alone? Kada's mother broke down crying. Lord, take this weight off us. But the visitor wasn't finished. There's more, they whispered, eyes red. Something I didn't tell detectives. Something I didn't tell any of you. Everyone leaned in. The visitor's voice trembled. Kada wasn't supposed to be alone that night. Somebody else was supposed to meet him. Somebody who never showed up. The entire room went silent. Kada's brother's heart dropped. Who? The visitor looked directly at him, and that look said everything. No, Kada's brother whispered, shaking his head in disbelief. Don't even start that. Don't even go there. The visitor choked out the words anyway. It was you. He was waiting for you. The room erupted instantly, shouting, crying, accusations flying like sparks from a fire. Kada's mother screamed, "Why didn't you go?" Kada's grandmother collapsed into a chair. Kada's cousin punched the wall so hard the picture frame rattled. But Kada's brother wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. He was shaking, shock, guilt, fear all hitting him at once. I didn't know. He never said I needed to meet him. He never told me why. The visitor whispered. He was scared, bro. He didn't want to worry you, but he needed you there. The family watched in horror as the truth crashed into the room like a wave. Guilt, betrayal, confusion, everything breaking at once. And outside, sirens blared again. Police were returning with new information. A discovery that would take this case in a direction none of them were prepared for. Because the remains weren't the only thing they found. They found something else, something that connected directly to someone in this house. And that's where the real nightmare begins. The sirens outside grew louder, cutting straight through the walls like they were meant for this house specifically. Everyone turned toward the window, hearts pounding, breaths uneven. Kada's brother wiped his face, trying to regain control, but he still looked shaken, like the truth had knocked the wind out of him. The visitors sat with their hands clasped together, staring at the floor, wishing they could take back every word. But the damage was already done. The family wasn't just hurting anymore, they were unraveling.
The doorbell rang.
Not a knock this time. A ring, sharp, deliberate, official. Kada's mother whispered, "Oh God, what now?" No one answered. No one moved. Eventually, Kada's grandmother stood up slowly, her hands trembling as she walked toward the door. When she opened it, 3 officers stood there, their faces tense, eyes serious. Not aggressive, just heavy, like they were carrying news that would crush anyone who heard it. "Ma'am," the lead officer said quietly, "we need to speak with the family. All of you." The grandmother stepped aside. The officers walked in, removing their hats, scanning the room like they already knew the atmosphere they were walking into. Kada's mother sat upright, clutching the pillow like it was the only thing holding her together. The cousins shifted, tense. Kada's brother stood near the doorway, uncertain whether to leave or prepare for the worst. The officer cleared his throat. "We've made another discovery at the search site." Kada's aunt snapped. "You already said that. We heard about the remains." The officer nodded. "That's not all we found." Everyone froze again. Every emotion in the room tightened. The officer continued, "We found an item that appears to belong to someone in this house." It felt like the floor dropped. Kada's brother stepped forward immediately. "Wait, what you talking about? Belong to who?" "We can't disclose specifics yet," the officer replied carefully. "But the item is personal. Something that would only be carried by someone close." Kada's cousin scoffed. "So now you're trying to pin this on the family? After everything they've been through?" "No," the officer said firmly. "We're not accusing anyone. We're trying to understand. Kada's mother's voice cracked. Show us, please. The officer exchanged looks with the others, then reached into a small evidence bag inside his coat. He held it gently, almost respectfully, before revealing what was inside. It was a bracelet, a simple one, beads, and a small charm Kada always wore when he was younger. He had stopped wearing it years ago, or so everyone thought. Kada's brother shook his head instantly. That can't be right. He didn't have that anymore. The officer replied, it was found near the secondary site, with the other remains. The room erupted, voices overlapping, panic rising. Kada's aunt shouted, that bracelet was in this house. I seen it in the drawer last year. The grandmother cried, why would that be out there? The cousin yelled, somebody planted that. Somebody trying to drag us. But the officer raised his hand. Listen, this discovery doesn't prove guilt. But it does mean the case now has two possible angles. Someone close to Kada was with him, or someone close to him tried to cover something. The visitor on the couch suddenly looked sick. Their face went pale. They lifted one hand weakly. I need to say something. All eyes snapped toward them. I saw that bracelet, they whispered. Not that night, but the day before. He had it in his pocket. He kept touching it like it meant something. Kada's mother's eyes filled with tears. Why didn't you say that? Why hide everything until now? I was scared, the visitor cried. Everything that happened, I didn't want blame on me. But that bracelet, he told me, he only took it out when something felt wrong. Kada's brother whispered, so he knew something was coming. The officers watched the exchange, silently taking mental notes. Is there anything else any of you remember? The lead detective asked. Silence. Then, slowly, the grandmother raised her hand. There was something, she said softly. 2 days before everything happened, I heard voices outside the house, whispering. I didn't think much of it because kids always walk around here. But that night, one voice sounded familiar. The detective leaned in. Familiar how? She hesitated, like someone Kada knew, someone he trusted. The room tightened again. Kada's brother stepped back, mind racing. So, you saying someone close lured him out? I'm saying, she whispered. He didn't go out there alone. Before anyone could respond, the officer's radio crackled. We've got something else, a voice said. You need to see it. The detective's expression changed instantly. He excused himself, stepping outside with urgency. The remaining officers stayed. The family stared at each other, terrified. A minute later, the detective returned, eyes wide, breath unsteady. There's been another development, he said. The family waited. The visitor waited. Everyone braced themselves. And then he said it. We found a witness. Someone who saw who Kada was with moments before everything happened. The room fell dead silent. And the detective wasn't finished. They're naming names. The room exploded with questions before the detective could even finish that sentence. Everyone spoke at once. Fear, anger, confusion all colliding in one chaotic wave. Kada's mother gripped the sofa so hard her fingers sank into the fabric. His grandmother whispered a prayer under her breath. Kada's cousin paced back and forth like the walls were closing in. The visitor just stared at the detective, frozen, like their soul had left their body. Kada's brother stepped forward first. Who? Who said they saw him? And who they pointing at? The detective held up his hand. I can't reveal names yet. The witness is extremely shaken and only agreed to talk off the record for now. But we're verifying their statement. Verifying? The aunt shouted. So, you don't even know if they're telling the truth. That's why we're handling this carefully, the detective said firmly. The witness claims they saw Kada leave the area with someone familiar. Someone who approached him calmly, not aggressively. Someone he willingly followed. Kada's brother inhaled sharply. Willingly? You saying he trusted them? That's what it looks like. The visitor buried their face in their hands, mumbling, No, this getting worse. Kada's cousin stopped pacing. So there is another person involved? The detective exhaled. We can't be sure. But the witness insists they weren't alone, and they gave us a description. Everyone leaned closer. The detective continued. The witness said the person with Kada had a dark hoodie, walked with a slight limp, and kept checking over their shoulder like they were nervous. Kada's grandmother gasped. A limp? That sounds like... Stop. Kada's brother cut her off, voice trembling. Don't say nobody's name until we know for sure. But the resemblance was already burning through everyone's minds. The detective looked around the room. Has anyone here seen someone in the neighborhood recently who matches that description? Silence. Then the visitor raised their head slightly. I know someone who walks like that. Every head snapped in their direction. Who? Kada's mother demanded. The visitor hesitated. I don't want to throw nobody under the bus. What if I'm wrong? Kada's cousin exploded. You've been holding stuff back this whole time. If you know something, say it. The visitors shook their head. I don't know if it was them. I'm just saying the way the witness described it, it sounds like someone Kada used to hang with. Someone he had a falling out with months ago. The family froze again, because they all knew exactly who the visitor meant. Someone who used to be at the house every week. Someone who used to call Kada family. Someone who vanished from their lives the moment the investigation began. Kada's brother spoke through clenched teeth. If you talking about who I think you talking about, the visitor whispered. I am. Kada's mother buried her face in her hands. Lord have mercy. Before the emotional storm could erupt again, the detective's radio buzzed a second time. We're bringing the witness in, the voice said. They've agreed to identify someone if needed. The detective looked at the family. If this individual is connected, we'll know soon. Kada's brother stepped toward him. And what if the witness is lying? Then we'll find that out too, the detective replied. But right now, we're following every lead. The cousin scoffed. Man, this whole thing sounds like a setup. How a witness popping up now after all this time? That's the same question we asked, the detective said. But they claim they were scared. And considering the circumstances surrounding this case, fear is believable. The visitor swallowed. What did they see exactly? Did they say what direction they went? The detective nodded. They said Kada, and the other person walked toward the wooded path near the back trail. The same area where the new remains were discovered. Everyone stiffened. Kada's brother whispered, that means whoever he was with went deeper with him. The detective didn't deny it. It's a possibility. Kada's mother shook her head violently. But why? Why would he go in there with anyone? That trail ain't safe, especially at night. The visitor exhaled shakily. That's why I think he trusted the person. He wouldn't go there unless he thought everything was fine. The detective stepped closer to the family. We're not ruling out the possibility that Kada thought he was meeting one person and someone else showed up. This sent shockwaves through the room. That don't make sense, the cousin muttered. It makes perfect sense, the detective said. If he expected to meet someone he trusted, he would have let his guard down. And if someone else was waiting, he wouldn't have seen it coming. Kada's grandmother trembled. So, you saying this might have been planned? I'm saying, the detective responded carefully. Nothing is off the table right now. The room descended into a suffocating silence. Even the TV in the background seemed to stop humming. The only sound was the distant, eerie echo of police radios outside. Then the visitor spoke again, voice barely a whisper. There's something else, something I didn't say earlier. Everyone turned toward them, exhausted, scared, but desperate for answers. The visitor looked at Kada's brother. Earlier that day, Kada told me he had a bad feeling, like someone was watching him. Kada's brother's heart dropped. He said he kept seeing the same shadow near the fences behind the apartments. Thought he was imagining it. Thought maybe the stress was getting to him. The detective raised an eyebrow. Did he say who he thought it was? No, the visitor whispered. But he said, if something happens, it ain't random. Those words hit the family like a punch. Kada's mother sobbed quietly. His cousin blinked fast, fighting his own emotions. The grandmother gripped her chair, whispering prayers under her breath. And then the detective said something nobody expected. We need one of you to come with us. The witness is describing clothing and movements, and they need someone who knew Kada well to help confirm or deny certain details. The family exchanged terrified glances. Who? The grandmother asked. The detective looked directly at Kada's brother. You. The brother stiffened. Me? Why me? Because, the detective said, the witness claims the person Kada was with moved almost like you. The room imploded. Kada's mother screamed. And oh! The cousin yelled, that witness lying. The visitor covered their face, sobbing, I didn't think. But the detective shook his head. We're not accusing you. We need you to see what the witness is describing so you can confirm whether the movements match someone else you know. The brother felt his stomach twist. So, you think I can help identify who it really was? Yes, the detective said. Or rule out someone. He swallowed hard and agreed. Because this case was spiraling into something bigger, messier, and way more personal than anyone ever expected. Kada's brother stood frozen in the middle of the living room, feeling every pair of eyes pressing into him like the weight of this entire investigation had suddenly wrapped itself around his throat. He didn't want to go with the detectives. He didn't want to hear what the witness had to say. But he also knew that if he didn't step up now, the situation would spin into something irreversible. The family already looked broken. His mother shaking. His grandmother whispering prayers. His cousins angry and scared at the same time. And the visitor, still trembling, still pale, still regretting every secret they kept. The detective repeated calmly, We're not taking you as a suspect. You're not being blamed. But the witness's description is too close to ignore. We need your eyes to help us figure out who they really saw. Kada's brother swallowed hard. I'll go. But I'm telling y'all right now, I ain't do nothing. And I ain't know nothing. We understand, the detective replied. We just need clarity. Kada's mother let out a shaky cry. Baby, you don't gotta go. He walked toward her and squeezed her hand. I got 'em, Ma. If I don't, they gonna think worse. The grandmother nodded slowly. Go on, son. Help them. Help him. The officers guided him outside while the family gathered at the door, watching with fear in their eyes. Flashing lights bounced off every window. Yellow tape fluttered in the wind. Neighbors stepped onto porches pretending not to stare but staring anyway. Inside the police SUV, Kada's brother felt the world shift. The detective in the passenger seat glanced back. You okay? No, he admitted. But let's go. The ride was quiet except for the distant crackle of radio traffic. Every second felt like an hour. Every red light felt like a lifetime. Kada's brother stared out the window, replaying every conversation he ever had with Kada, trying to make sense of how things had fallen apart so fast. When they arrived at the station, the witness was already there, hidden in a small private room. The detective explained, You won't see them. They won't see you. We're protecting them, just like we're protecting you. They brought Kada's brother into a viewing area where a monitor displayed a silhouette, dark, blurred for anonymity. The witness sat hunched over, hands fidgeting, voice trembling. The detective pressed the intercom. Can you repeat what you told us earlier? The witness took a shaky breath. I saw Kada walking toward the back trail with someone familiar. Someone who moved like they were nervous. The detective asked gently, Can you describe the movement again? They walked with a slight limp, like something was wrong with their left leg, and they kept looking over their shoulder like they were checking if someone was coming. The detective turned toward Kada's brother. Does that sound like you? Kada's brother shook his head instantly. I don't limp. Never have. The detective nodded. Exactly why we needed you here. He pressed the button again. Does the person resemble this man in any way? He turned the camera briefly toward Kada's brother. Only a silhouette, not a face. The witness stared for a moment, then exhaled. No, that's not him. Kada's brother felt his chest loosen slightly. The detective nodded again, relieved. Good. Now we need to figure out who does match the movements. The witness continued. But I do know one thing. The person had on a dark hoodie with white stitching on the sleeves. That's what stood out. The detective froze. White stitching. Yes, the witness said. It was distinctive. I've seen that hoodie before. Kada's brother's heart dropped again. Seen it where? The witness hesitated. Around the neighborhood. On someone who used to hang with Kada. The detective leaned forward. Are you willing to tell us who? Silence. Then the witness finally whispered a name. A name that made Kada's brother jerk back in shock. A name that made the detective's face tighten. A name that belonged to someone who had disappeared the moment the investigation started. The detective switched off the intercom, turning to Kada's brother. Do you know this person? Kada's brother clenched his jaw. Yeah, everybody knows him. Is he someone Kada trusted? Used to. The detective scribbled something aggressively in his notebook. This changes things. Before they could continue, another officer rushed into the room. Detective, there's something you need to see. It's about the secondary site. The detective stood up. What now? They found tracks, the officer said. Fresh ones. The detective's stomach tightened. From who? The officer exhaled. Not sure, but it looks like someone went back to the site. Kada's brother cursed under his breath. Why would someone go back there? The detective grabbed his coat. Only 2 reasons: to hide something or to retrieve something. He turned back. We're going back to the site. Now. Kada's brother didn't hesitate. I'm coming. The detective agreed without argument. Fine. But stay close. They rushed out of the station, lights flashing once again, engines roaring as the caravan headed back toward the trail where the new remains had been found. When they arrived, officers had the area completely surrounded. More lights, more tape, more urgency. And then they saw it, footprints, leading away from the trail. Deep, fresh, panicked. The detective crouched down, examining them closely. These tracks are from less than an hour ago. Kada's brother whispered, whoever it is, they scared. Or sloppy, the detective muttered, which means they might still be nearby. Dogs barked. Officers spread out. And, before anyone could process what was happening, a scream came from the woods. Everyone sprinted toward the sound, flashlights slicing through the darkness. And what they found lying there on the ground was something none of them were prepared for. At first it was hard to tell what they were looking at. Flashlights shook in trembling hands, shadows bounced violently across the trees, and officers yelled for backup. Kada's brother pushed through the crowd, heart pounding loud enough to drown out every other sound. Then the detective knelt down and slowly pulled back a branch. It wasn't a body, but it was something almost as chilling. A backpack, covered in mud, ripped on one side, and freshly dropped. The detective slid on gloves and opened it carefully. Inside were only 3 things: a broken phone, a folded piece of paper, and a black hoodie with white stitching on the sleeves. The exact description the witness gave. Kada's brother felt the air leave his lungs. That's it, he whispered. That's the hoodie. That's the one he always wore. The detective looked up at him. So the witness was telling the truth. Yeah, Kada's brother said, voice low. They were. The detective unfolded the piece of paper next. It was a torn-up notepad sheet, edges muddy, handwriting sloppy and rushed. Only one line was readable. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Everyone stared at it, horrified. The detective closed the bag slowly. This is a confession, or close to one. Whoever this belongs to panicked. They came back here to grab something, maybe to destroy evidence, then dropped this. Kada's brother rubbed his face. Or someone chased them. Before the detective could respond, a flashlight beam flickered across something deeper in the trees. Detective, an officer shouted. Something over here. They ran toward the voice. The closer they got, the stronger the smell of disturbed earth became. The ground looked scraped, footprints everywhere, leaves trampled. The detective crouched again. Someone dug here recently. Kada's brother stared. For what? We don't know, the detective muttered. But whatever was buried was removed. Fresh soil. This was within the last hour. One of the officers approached. We have dogs tracking the scent. Whoever it is, they're moving fast but not far. Kata's brother stood still, breathing heavily. Every part of him wanted answers. Closure. Truth. But every new development made the truth feel farther away. The detective turned to him. There's more to this than we thought. Whoever Kada met that night, whoever wore that hoodie, they came back because they're scared. They're desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. Kada's brother nodded slowly. So, what now? We follow the trail, the detective said. And we don't stop. The woods lit up as officers fanned out, calling directions, scanning branches, marking footprints with small flags. The dogs barked aggressively now, pulling handlers deeper into the dark. Kada's brother followed close behind, every step heavier than the last. Then suddenly the dogs stopped. They stood at the clearing's edge, growling toward a thick patch of bushes. Officers raised their flashlights, weapons drawn, not out of aggression but protocol. Come out with your hands visible, one shouted. Silence. Then movement. A rustle. A shift. A figure slowly rose from behind the brush, disheveled, shaking, breathing hard. Dirt on their clothes. Twigs in their hair. Eyes wild with fear. Kada's brother's breath caught in his throat. It was the same person the witness named. A childhood friend of Kada. Someone who grew up with him. Someone who had vanished the moment the investigation started. Someone who promised they didn't know anything. The person raised their hands slowly. I didn't mean for any of this, they whispered. Please just listen before you judge. Officers surrounded them immediately, keeping distance but blocking every escape route. The detective stepped forward. Why did you come back here? What were you trying to hide? The person shook violently. Nothing. I swear. I didn't come to hide anything. I came back because I lost the bag. You expect us to believe that? An officer snapped. It's the truth, they insisted. I was here earlier, but not for what you think. Kada's brother stepped forward, fists clenched. Then why were you here? Why were you at the trail? Why were you with my brother that night? The person's voice cracked. Because he asked me to come. Everyone fell silent. He texted me. The person continued, voice trembling. He told me he needed to talk. Said it was important. Said he didn't want anyone else involved. Kada's brother blinked. Why you? Y'all hadn't talked in months. I know, the person whispered. But he said he trusted me for this. And when I got here, he looked scared. Paranoid. Kept looking around like someone was following him. The detective narrowed his eyes. And then what? I told him to come back with me. I told him we should leave. But he wouldn't. He said he needed proof. Proof of what? The detective asked. The person broke down. I don't know. He wouldn't tell me. He just kept saying he was right. That he finally had something that would make everything clear. Kada's brother stepped closer. So, what happened? Tell me. The person covered their face. We heard something. Behind us. Footsteps. Close. Too close. Kada panicked. I panicked. I ran. I know I shouldn't have, but I ran. And when I looked back, he wasn't behind me. The woods went dead silent. The detective spoke softly. Did you see who it was? The person shook their head desperately. No. It was dark. I just heard them. But I swear it wasn't me. I didn't hurt him. I didn't touch him. I didn't. They fell to their knees, sobbing. Kada's brother stared at them, anger and pain twisting together. So, you left him? You left my brother? I thought he was right behind me, the person cried. I thought he was running with me. I didn't know. The detective exhaled slowly. Everything you say will need to be verified. But running made you look guilty. I know, they whispered. But I'm done running now. Officers moved in gently, placing cuffs not out of force but procedure. The detective stepped back, watching closely. Kada's brother felt tears sting his eyes. Why didn't you come forward sooner? The person whispered the last words anyone expected. Because I wasn't the only one out here that night. Everyone froze. The detective stepped forward sharply. What do you mean by that? The person looked up, eyes wide with fear. I saw another shadow. Someone who followed us. Someone who didn't want us to leave together. Kada's brother felt the ground tilt beneath him. The detective tightened his jaw. Who was it? The person swallowed hard. I don't know the name, but I recognize the walk. And just like that, the case wasn't solved. It had only opened wider. The real suspect wasn't caught. The truth wasn't clear. And the family had no idea what storm was coming next. The night wasn't ending. It was just beginning.